All right, everybody, shalom, and welcome to the Yishai Fleischer Show. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Periscope, Twitter, and I'm just adjusting a little bit of volume. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback, but I want to hear what you guys are thinking about our sounds and our video, and I'm joined by Rav Mike Feuer. Rav Mike, shalom and welcome.
Oh, shalom. I'm going to go share the show right now.
Right, and we're going to start in just a few minutes once I know how you guys, and I want to hear about the relative volumes between myself and Rav Mike.
You're obsessed with relative volume, man.
I just want to have fair and relative volume. That's all I'm asking for in this world. Okay, so please write us a comment wherever you're watching this from, whenever you're watching this from, and Peacefulos says sound and video okay. All right, that's good news. But I also want relative volumes.
Okay, like could be better, or okay, like no, it's okay. Sorry.
I think he's being very like NASA, like go flight type of thing. All right.
All right.
Right. All right. We're 1 minute and 7 seconds in. I want to get a few more people in, and we'll start our show in just a minute. Looking forward to hearing from everybody. Looking forward to seeing you wherever you are. Rav Mike, how are you feeling today?
Oh, dandy. I'm waiting to get my coronavirus chisun. What do they call that? They call it a
vaccine.
Vaccination. That's what it is. In just about an hour.
All right, we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, Benji Tzion says sound and look great to me. So that is great. So let's get going. Let's start it up. Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Yishai Fleischer Show, broadcasting live on Facebook, on Periscope, on YouTube, and of course on my podcast, the Yishai Fleischer Israel Podcast, broadcasting on the Land of Israel Networks. And there is Lou Weiss joining us. Shalom, Yishai and Rav Mike. And Benji says the sound looks good. And Peacefulos sends sound and video okay. So that means that we are ready. Rav Mike Feuer joins us. Rav Mike, shalom and welcome.
Oh, shalom, Yishai. It's good to see you.
It's great to see you. It's great to have you on board right now. I know that we have to end in about 45 minutes because you have to go get your vaccination.
That is the truth. I am joining the masses here in our wonderful country, which is mastered vaccine distribution while at the same time almost completely ignoring the spread of the virus. It's kind of an interesting combination. My theory is that we're just going for herd immunity as fast as humanly possible, and since you can't actually get everybody the vaccine at once, we'll just let everyone else get sick.
Maybe it's a giant placebo thing, and that's why we have all these vaccines, and yet it keeps going.
We have become a lab for Pfizer, so it wouldn't surprise me if some number of us are getting the sort of control test there.
Well, the Director General of the Jewish community of Hebron got a phone call, Uri Karzan got a phone call telling him that he was positive for corona, and yet he informed them delightfully that he had not even taken a test. So what were they referring to?
Now they've just begun to tag you by statistics. You must be positive, right?
That's right. And this show, by the way, is dedicated to Uri because it is his birthday. And I want to wish him really continued success in leading the Jewish community forward, Jewish community of Hebron forward, for strength and continued vitality. A reborn vitality. That's right. Amen. And also for him and the Jewish community, which protects the tombs of the forefathers and mothers all the way from 3,800 years ago. So really neat stuff. So happy birthday to you, Uri. You're getting a vaccine, and today also is the day that is the last day of the Trump administration. And Indeed. So there was what I thought was a quite beautiful farewell address by President Trump, which I thought was conciliatory and peacemaking, and stood on the successes, including one success which I thought to myself that, boy, you'd think that the liberals would appreciate more. And what he said was, I'm really the first president in a long time who hasn't gotten America into any new wars.
Yeah, I've seen a bit of that in the press. No, not in the liberal press, but amongst the sort of like social media and the conservative side, which I hadn't really thought about. And he has managed to stay out of conflict, right, which is an impressive feat.
It is, and there's so many different opinions and so many hot opinions, including an opinion piece that I wrote in the Newsweek,
which I did get to read.
Yeah, how was that? How did it look to you?
And I agree with the sentiment that this idea of like a reality-based foreign policy, like speaking about truth instead of ideology, and also whatever one feels about President Trump, the fact that he came from outside the established policy community offered opportunities which I hope won't be lost with the incoming administration.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And as I was saying before, it's a very passionate and heated debate. A good friend of yours and mine said to me on WhatsApp. He was writing to me. He says to me, maybe I'll just read it directly. Maybe it'll sound better. And I don't want to say exactly who it is, but he let's say
he who shall not be named.
That's right. He writes, "What troubles me more is the extent to which the Trump years revealed Israel's national camp to still suffer from exilic thinking. We shouldn't want a better emperor in Washington, but freedom from the empire. The dangers of a friendly U.S. administration that seeks to take 70% of the territories from Israel is more dangerous than an unfriendly administration that wants to take 100%. Israel knows how to resist Esav's bite, but not his kiss. So long as our national camp is so full of slaves."
Ooh.
El Khayani is one of the mayors of in the Jordan Valley, who was kind of more anti-Trump. He says El Khayani's analysis is correct. A Biden administration will be safer for Israel. I wrote back, "Sorry, but I disagree. The Trump years were about the Gentiles accepting the truth of Israel and about the good side of Esav splitting off from Lavan." And I meant by that like the years of trickery and lying, saying that you support us, but actually, in fact, not support us and support our enemies, Lavan style, and bringing Ishmael into alliance with Israel. And then I explained, feeling the need to have a bad Esav so that Jews don't fall for it is actually exilic thinking.
Ooh.
Like you need a boogeyman to keep Jews in line.
Yeah, kind of like anti-Semitism keeps you Jewish.
Right. It's like, oh, we'll be much better off if they really, really hate us. And, this is, I think in your history podcasts, you must have covered Napoleon and the Alti Rebbe's position, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe's position, that kind of freedom was going to be bad for us. But I don't think this is like that. I think it's much more, I don't think that Trump did a lot for Israel. He did a lot of stuff to scale back the stuff that America was doing that was anti-Israel. And thereby bringing, as you said before, and as I mentioned in Newsweek, a reality-based or truth-based foreign policy, which is like, why are we saying that we support our ally, but actually support its enemies? Why would we give pallets of cash and a green light for an Iranian nuclear bomb? Why would we give money that we know goes to Palestinian Authority sponsored terror? Why would we do that? Let's stop doing that. That's not good for us. Why do we keep our ally weak? And to me, it's not like it was a gift to Israel. It was like a gift to America to stop talking out of two sides of its mouth.
I mean, I think it's a gift in general, and it's one of the things that that maybe we can expect from the incoming administration. Some like very clear talk of opposition, but I think you're right. They sort of like doublespeak, which became acceptable, particularly in Americans' Middle Eastern policy, will be much harder to reestablish in the wake of the Trump administration's sort of the attempt to, like you said, to pursue a reality-based policy. So we'll see. It all begins today.
Now, that begins today, and we're exactly in the Torah portions of dealing with Pharaoh, right? A new one
that didn't know Joseph.
That's right. There's a new one that didn't know Joseph, or didn't know Joseph. Maybe his name was like Joseph. You notice that? Okay. In any case, he didn't know himself or something like that. But interesting. Here's another twist of thought that I heard from Ari Abramowitz. And Ari Abramowitz on one of the recent Israel fellowships, Land of Israel fellowships, he said something that I never heard before. He said that the idea that God limited the freedom of Pharaoh is actually the opposite. Limited his what am I looking for here?
His
freedom
choice.
of choice. His choice, right? Is he the Torah says that he stopped him from having free choice, basically. But Ari Abramowitz explained in the name of the Seforno that actually what God did was actually give him free choice. Because when God revealed himself in Egypt with all these plagues, it became kind of impossible to believe that there isn't a God.
Right.
And that Israel shouldn't be freed. So he returned to him his free choice so that he can choose to do exactly what he wanted to do, which is to say no. And to be like, no, I don't believe in this God, and I don't want to release the Jews, right?
It's very profound, because that means if he had chosen to do what was right, he would have chosen to do what was right because it was right, and not because of the duress of the sort of direct exposure of God's will.
Right, that's right. And Lou reminds us we're talking about free will. Free will. Speaking of free will. Yes, free willy. That's right. Speaking of free will, one of the main things that how much will and choice do we really have? In many ways, we're very limited. We don't decide when we're born. We don't even decide a good amount of our intellect. We don't really even decide a good amount of the station that we are in life. There's a lot of things that are kind of predetermined for us.
Your gender, your genetics, your education, your etc. I mean, there's actually very little which you do decide.
What's that? I missed that last part. There was a buffer. What'd you say?
I said there's very little which you do decide.
Right.
And that's why our sages say Kol b'yedei Shemayim chutz mirat shamayim.
Right.
That actually everything's in the hands of heaven except the fear of God.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning what you do is actually you choose who you serve. You choose the story within which you fit the experiences of your life. Mm-hmm. You choose how you respond to that which you've been given.
So the choices that we do have are very much informed by the content that we consume, the media that we watch, and we've really seen manipulations of that recently. And I really don't care now on what side of the political aisle you're on. That's really not important. The fact is our thinking is being manipulated by people who think about how to manipulate thinking. Think about what I'm trying to say.
And make a lot of money off it.
Right, make a lot of money. And somebody's scientifically approaching how to keep us addicted and how to keep us in a certain mental line. Think about that for a second.
You have been hacked. That's what it comes down to.
Oh
Your mind has been hacked, both on a biochemical perspective and a psychological perspective. Your mind has been hacked.
Wow. I got to tell you, I think I found a Greek quote. I think my mom helped me find it from, I think it's Aeschylus or a Greek, I don't know how to pronounce this, but he said the first casualty of war is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel like we're living in a time where truth as a commodity is rarefied. It's become very rare to really know what truth is.
I would take that one step further, is that there's huge portions of Western culture, at least, that are now actively fighting against the very idea. Because truth is a rare commodity, at least implies that it's there and it can be found and etc. But a huge part of the postmodern element of Western society is actually in an active fight against that. To even claim there is such a thing as truth is an act of sort of basically power and violence.
Oh my gosh, that's a mind spinning thought to me. Right, I see exactly what you're saying. If you're postmodern, everybody's got truths, and if you want to say I have truth, that is an act of violence.
It's an act of violence, and indubitably motivated by a desire for power.
Wow.
That's
a fascinating thought. I just want to say that I am very happy that within various circles there is new technologies that are coming to challenge some of the both thought control and the peering into of our lives. For example, Signal or DuckDuckGo, or these guys that are saying, hey, we understand that privacy is important to you. We don't want to get into your kishkas. We want to help you search the internet freely without thinking that somebody's looking over your shoulder. And I downloaded DuckDuckGo the other day into my phone on the advice of our friend Zev, and I was just like, it's great and it feels great. Now do I know for sure that this Android phone, which is a Google phone, is no longer spying on me? No, but I like the atmosphere that somebody's gone up to challenge. And you and I, before the show, we were talking that it could be that one of the things, and this happens sometimes with power hungry entities, that the tech giants maybe overstep their bounds just enough for people to be like, wait a minute, I'm not actually comfortable with giving you all my information for free. I'm not comfortable with becoming my data being your commodity, and I'm not comfortable with you hacking my brain, like you were just saying. And so I want to support those entities that are like, yeah, no, we're going to give you your privacy back, and we're going to challenge the big boys. And that to me, by the way, is a sign of a certain health in America and in the world, that I was happy to see that such a thing is rising up now.
Yeah, no, at a certain point, the radical individualism that technology offers. I mean, there's kind of two ways that technology goes. I can live in my own world, but I can also be completely consumed by somebody else's. But the more accessible the technology becomes, the more it opens the door for actual freedom. The problem is are we willing to walk through it, right? Or is the sort of temptation of convenience and of going with the flow and a very naive trust that we've all had in the industries that created these things. It's not a simple equation that's driving people.
That's right, but when you overstep your bounds, you kind of remind people, wait a minute,
it's a wake-up call.
Right, I don't want to be your robot.
Right.
I'm not here to serve. Resistance is futile. It's like, maybe it's not so futile, Maybe it's good to, and I always say this, and I wish I had a softer way of saying this, but my mother once pointed out to me a very famous study that women that struggle against their accosters in rape situations were much healthier, even though they may have been more battered in the short term. They fared better psychologically later on. And
Yes.
That really that study taught me that struggling, even without necessarily winning, struggling is itself a very healthy value. And the fact that people are struggling to get their privacy back now, I think, is a healthy value.
Yeah, but it's a part of a larger conversation about agency and the role that agency plays in both the human condition and in psychological behavior. I tell people in my counseling all the time that for instance, someone who perhaps is facing a divorce situation, right, and feels that it could be easy to throw in the towel and enter into the conflict, etc. But I always say, listen, you got to do what's right, even when you think it's not going to work. Because should you not win the race, you still want your legs to be pumping for all they're worth when the whistle blows. Because then at least you can look yourself in the eye every morning and say, I did everything I could. Mm-hmm. And that maintenance of agency beyond any hope for success or achievement, etc., is a critical element of a sense of self-worth and just the ability to function in life.
All right, so that's great. Let's get to the self-worth of a man who's in the spotlight, and it's not President Trump or President Biden, but it's rather Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and God is hardening his heart. We gave a different explanation earlier than that, but there's going to be the last 4 plagues. It's the last triad, plus the denouement, plus the big one, right?
The denouement is after the big one.
Oh, the denouement is the plus one. Oh, so no,
the denouement is right. The denouement is like the after the climax. It depends on where you put the climax.
All right, so then the climax in this case. Gosh, I wish I had a Latin or French word for it right now, but whatever. Anyway, so in any case, we're gonna have the locusts. The locusts are going to come on, and they're going to cover the eye of the land. I was wondering about that because the eye of the land in many ways is like, what does that mean? The eye of the land.
It's a weird.
Yeah. Maybe it means we no longer see. We no longer see things clearly anymore, and this darkness of the
loci.
I think it's locusts, but in any case,
I think it's just locusts.
Because loci is like location.
Yeah.
And so you have got these locusts. That's pretty bad. And then there's this verse that I always point out every year, the famous verse that it says that Moses and Aaron like demand again to let my people go, and he says to them, "Sure, go serve them." Who exactly is going? Give me the lists.
Right, me.
Right, the famous lists, the lists of the Jews. Right, mi
Yeah.
v'mi ha'holchim. Who exactly do you expect to go? Just hand me over the list, and I'll look it over, and some people will be letting this. Right. It's like that book, Perfidy. Remember that book, Perfidy? It's like, give me the list of the Hungarian Jews type of thing. Mi v'mi ha'holchim. The other explanation of that is he says that Pharaoh says to Moses, this is according to the Baal HaTurim, he says to him, don't you know that you're not going to make it to the land of Israel? Don't you know that you're never gonna get power yourself? Because I see in the stars and the constellations that you're not gonna win this one. You're gonna die in the desert. And then Moses says to him, well, actually, everybody between 20 and 60 is going to go in. The younger than 20 and the older than 60-year-olds are going to go into the land of Israel. And mi v'mi stands for Kalev and Yehoshua. Caleb, the son of Yefuneh, and Yeshua, they will go into the land. Indeed, they're the ones that are going to make it in there. So Pharaoh kind of says, like, come on, buddy. Come on, man. You're not going to get power.
Your interest, right?
Yeah. And he's like, because it's not about me, but my people are going to go. They are going to inherit this land.
Yeah, so I'm got nothing to really add to that. It's
Well, what do you think about power talking back to truth and being like, come on, truth, don't be over ideological. It's not really going to happen.
I mean, we've had this discussion before that as soon as one abandons hope for some sense of truth, or we can even say goodness, then everything becomes a discourse of power. And what Pharaoh is basically saying is that you're no different than I am. You're simply trying to gain power at my expense, and that morality is a tool in that discussion, right? Remember that one of the great revolutions of the Torah, and it's particularly felt in our age, is that a heroic story can actually be embodied in history.
Mm-hmm.
That heroic stories don't just belong to the realm of myth and aspiration, where they inspire individuals, etc., but the world is a fallen world, as Christianity would ultimately take it, and a lot of that is the Greek despair from, sort of like the ability of morality to actually go beyond the surface. The Torah here is telling a heroic story. The question of who the hero in this story is a good one, because in that observation you just made, is Pharaoh is basically saying to Moshe, you're not the hero in this story.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to make it.
Right.
And Moshe says, you don't understand what it means to be a Jew. Right? To be a Jew means that Am Yisrael represents God, and God is always the hero in the story, except God is the hero in the story insofar as humanity is willing to make God the hero. Right? God is not the hero in that sort of classic ancient world mythological sense. I'm going to come down and smite the enemy, then I will rule as God king. That's what Pharaoh was doing. Moshe is saying, no, it's a whole different story. We want to get rid of put it this way. Pharaoh never considered an option. He thought Moshe wanted to get him off the throne and put himself on the throne. Pharaoh never considered the option that what Moshe was looking to do was get rid of the throne.
Exactly. Now, who does this remind me of? It reminds me of the snake. The snake kind of says, like, come on, man, you're just trapped inside, God's world. He's just keeping power for himself, and he doesn't want you to eat from this tree because
you'll become competitors.
Right, and he just wants to keep you down. And it's the same thing. Like, you're not going to get personal power. You're not going to succeed out there. The system's going to keep you down. So you might as well just join me. You might as well just like not fight this big fight. It's really senseless.
And even further, if you think that there's some sort of like a better way, there's some heroic story, there's some ultimate truth, nah, that's just about power too. That there is nothing outside of that consideration.
I mean, there's a word for all this, which is cynicism.
It's one of its expressions, for sure.
Yeah, it's like cynical. It's like there's no, And I think we actually have this also. A third case of this is later on in the prophets, which is the story of Jeroboam, of Rechavam, and Yeroboam. Excuse me, Yeroboam. Right? Jeroboam is Yeravam, and basically the man of God comes to him and he says to him, like, he says to him, "You're making an idol. You have to stop this. The idol, the tabernacle that you're making is going to break." But then Jeroboam says to him, like, "Why don't you come and eat with me? Let's talk about this. Let's be friends.
Yeah.
I see you're a powerful prophet. Let's let's team up. Why go fight against this? It's not going to benefit you at the end. It's like, let me make it sweet. Let me sweeten the deal for you." And I think that there's a real cynicism of power out there, and really also corruption which is easily, as we say, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and a little bit of power.
That's because when power becomes the only standard of measure of right and wrong, then it's not even corruption anymore. It's just common sense. Mm-hmm. Right? If power is your only standard of measure, then why wouldn't you do whatever it took to gain more power and maintain what you have? Like, where's the wrong in that? You understand? That's why it's so important that this whole story is an assertion that God's will lies outside of the equations of power that humanity to this very day is obsessed with.
This is deep stuff, and that's, I guess that's the revolution here. Going back to the plagues. The plague of the locusts destroyed all the foliage on the trees and all the fruits, and it brought a darkness. But the next plague, it prefigured the darkness that's coming next, which is full-on darkness, the kind of darkness that nobody can really move. There's a darkness that came onto Egypt, which is now, you can say, well, there's a crazy locust infestation that just happens, but not 3 days of darkness.
Yeah, well, and this 3 days of darkness also opens up a different layer of the story, because now for the first time, at least in the eyes of the Midrash, we see that that there's in addition to breaking the back of the Egyptian empire, there's also a breaking that Am Yisrael has to undergo in order to really be born out of the shards of that empire. That, as the Midrash says, 4/5 of Am Yisrael didn't want to leave. They didn't want to leave, and that darkness was an act of kindness and also an act of sort of protecting the honor of God, in that those who didn't want to leave disappeared in that time. Mm. And sadly, it's a pattern that repeats itself throughout Jewish history.
Are you calling this darkness the darkness of assimilation, or
the darkness is actually there to cover the kavod of God and Am Yisrael? Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact that 4/5 of Am Yisrael didn't want to leave slavery repeats itself, whether it's in assimilation, whether it's in people that reject the potential for our future here in the land of Israel, whether it's in those who didn't get out of Europe. Take your pick. It's not a unique phenomenon that some people have a sense that the writing is on the wall and others do not.
That's funny about the writings on the wall. Look behind me and you'll see the
writing. It's hieroglyphic. The hieroglyph on the wall.
The Egyptian writing on the wall. They don't see it, and
this is a big question for me. My grandfather stowed away from Europe in 1937. Just went to Belgium, snuck onto a ship, just said, "Forget it. There's no future here anymore." But I never got to meet him. He died before I was born. But I often wonder what made him different.
Right.
Not him different than all of his peers that just simply said, "No, come on, it's not going to be that. Or even if it's bad, we'll survive." Just no more future.
My grandfather did the same thing. He was 16 years old, and he left his Polish town, and his mother was calling to him, and he wouldn't look back because he knew that evil was coming. And he went, and he ended up in Russia. But he ran away from Poland, and most of the family was wiped out in Auschwitz. So, some people, they just have this sense. I don't even know if it's, necessarily a character or just hearing a certain call. It's hard to know. It's hard to know what, Now, Rabbi Shmuley Botech recently penned an article in which he thought about should European Jews leave. And true to Chabad type of thinking, he said the 614th commandment, he was quoting somebody else, is that we should never let Hitler win. And
that's Emil Fackenheim.
Okay, and Emil Fackenheim, okay. And in this constellation, leaving Europe would be that Hitler wins. And so Jews should not leave Europe because it would be a loss to Europe and it would be a victory for Hitler. So people like myself hear that and I'm just like, that is such a misunderstanding of I like the idea of not letting Hitler win. That's fabulous. But not
it's a worthwhile essay to read, by the way. I can share it with you if you want.
Yeah. Oh, I'd like that very much, yeah.
Fackenheim was very interesting. He was a Reform rabbi who really became very convinced that Israel was the future. He ended up moving here. That was probably in the 60s when he finally moved after 67. But he has a lot of interesting thought.
Sounds good. Sounds really good. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you for enlightening us about that. But Shmuley Botech's conclusion is Jews should not leave Europe. But I thought to myself, that's a funky conclusion. Isn't what Hitler really wants? And I could find it to you if you want to equate Hitler with Amalek. I could find you many sources that what Hitler or Amalek really doesn't want is the Jewish people to come to the land of Israel. That's the real thing that an Amalek agent wants to really stop from happening.
Yeah, I mean that's what came up for me is that if you leave Europe to come to Israel, you're fulfilling a mitzvah. Like it's just not there's no comparison. Meaning Fackenheim's point was that Jews shouldn't give up on Judaism. That was what he was fighting against. Saying basically speaking to American Jewry in the wake of the Holocaust and people, and it's a very important work of post-Holocaust theology, one of the earliest ones. And he's basically saying, and he's a Reform rabbi, remember? So like right. the classic Torah Mina Shamayim theology is not holding water for him. But what he's saying is basically you can't give up on the God of Israel, you can't give up on the people of Israel, you can't give up on the Torah of Israel, because if you do, you've basically finished Hitler's job for him. You're not finishing Hitler's job by moving to Tel Aviv or Modi'in or Jerusalem. Sorry, it's not
very
at all.
Good. Very good. Well explained. I just want to put this up that Benji Zion writes, my Polish family has a similar story, Yishai. Here's my grandmother's Holocaust testimony that she filmed with Steven Spielberg. That's thank you so much for putting that up, Benji, and so cool of Steven Spielberg, who I think has an interesting record, maybe a mixed record, I think, when it comes to the Jewish story, but certainly a Jew who's made an impact, and I think that the Holocaust stuff that he did is to be certainly lauded. Some of his movies about Israel. About the killing of the terrorists of Munich.
I'm working on that episode right now.
Okay, looking forward to that. And that's, of course, on the Jewish Story. That's your other podcast here on the Land of Israel Network and on your networks as well. And people can find that at ravmike.com and jewishstory.co. And it's really one of the greatest Jewish podcasts, history podcasts certainly out there. And I really want to recommend that everybody checks it out. And it's just a great resource for all of us and well made as well.
Thank you.
All right, let's keep going. Here. So we dealt with the plague of locusts. We dealt with the plague of darkness, and we're going to deal with the big plague of the killing of the firstborn. But did I miss one? Or am I okay here? Right. Okay. So I'm in good shape. But the truth of the matter is we have to do a little thing here, which is to actually start the Torah. We have to start the Torah because Torah... Eat. What's that?
We got to eat.
We got to eat? Is that...
We got to eat.
That's right. Yeah, and really we got to start the Torah in the sense that here we go with the thing that makes the Jewish nation a nation. Remember, till now, everything in the Torah that we've heard about is about the leaders, the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacobs, the Moses and Aarons. Suddenly, the people are commanded. They're given Torah from Lashon, from the word hora'ah, which is teachings. Like, this is what you got to do. This is the stuff of Judaism begins here in Parshat Bo. And that is the beginnings of the commandment that this is the first month for you, the month of Nisan. This is the first month for you. And from here on, you got to be counting it and prepare the Paschal lamb by in the face of the Egyptians. Take their god, the sheep, and bring it into your house for 4 days. Store it in your house, keep it in your house, and then slaughter it. Take its blood, put it on the doorpost so that God doesn't sweep you up with that plague as well. Show that you're different. Show that you're courageous, and begin being a nation through accepting the laws.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic transition. We've spoken about it before, the explosion of commandments that happens at this point in Sefer Shemot, in all of the book of Bereshit, of Genesis, and the previous 11 chapters of Shemot. There are only 3 mitzvot. Mm-hmm. Here, I think it might even be as many as 20 or more. I would have to go look at the numbers. But certainly, I mean, just within the next few chapters, there's literally an explosion of mitzvot. And what's I find interesting is that it deals with sanctity in 2 of the 3 critical dimensions that Am Yisrael is going to deal with them. One is time, like you pointed out. And in certain level, time is the foundational aspect of sanctity that we've been granted to work with, because the first appearance of holiness is in the fabric of creation on the 7th day, on Shabbat. And here, that's why the sanctification of the new moon and the months is the beginning. And we know that particularly in exile, but also even in our home, we became masters of the sanctity of time, right? And building intense, cathedrals in time, if you will, out of the Moadim and Shabbat, etc. But then we deal with the sanctity of peoplehood, the sanctity of human collective existence through the Pesach. I mean, you might think, when you're talking about the Paschal Lamb, it's a commandment, it's an important one, but no. But if you have to look very closely, it's about the sanctification of the family and the people and the tribe, or drawing of boundaries between the circumcised and the not circumcised, right? That it is the national covenant, in the same way that circumcision is a personal covenant. The piece that's missing here, of course, is sanctity of place, because it doesn't belong in Egypt. It only belongs, really in its essence, it only belongs in the land of Israel. Once we learn the truth of sanctity of place in the land of Israel, the future of what we call mikdash ma'at, right? The small sanctified spaces of the synagogue and the Beit Midrash will be able to be extensions of that. But there's a reason that the Midrash says that in the time of Mashiach, let it be soon, let it be now, that all the synagogues and all the Bate Midrash will pick up and fly to the land of Israel, which is like a strange Midrash, right? But on a simple level, what does that mean? I think it's that any sanctity which Am Yisrael is able to establish in physical space outside of the land of Israel is derivative of the sanctity of place, which is really only available here for us.
It's interesting. There's a lot of Midrashim and Rashis and Balaturim. Everybody mentions that God did not speak to Moses in the palace or in the kind of town, city, right? It's like God. This was too filled with idolatry, and he wouldn't give the place the respect. It was the opposite of sanctity. It was
idolatrous. Yeah, it was idolatrous defilement for sure.
And God was like, "I'm not showing up here," which is an interesting thing. This idea of God not showing up somewhere. I'm not going to reveal myself here. I really actually like that a lot. One of the things I like to show my children is the fact that we don't put a mezuzah in the bathroom. And we have a big discussion about this. I'm like, does that mean that God's not in the bathroom? Well, it doesn't mean that, because when you come out, you bless God for going to the bathroom. Okay, but there's a place which is like, no, I'm not gonna show up here. Sure, I'm here because the whole world stands on God's creations every minute, every second. But no, don't force me to go in here, because it's not a place of sanctity. I'm found more in the synagogue, and I'm not so found in the bathroom in corporeal type of language. Okay,
I think that you're putting your finger on a very important aspect of the human condition, which is, listen, I'm with the Hasidim, late ata panui mine, right? There is nowhere that's empty of God. The problem is not God, so to speak. The problem is humanity. Meaning, and this is a place where that idea that the medium is the message is more than just a kitschy statement by Marshall McLuhan, but rather indicates something within human experience. Is that the limitation on God's ability to reveal these mitzvot to Moshe was not on God. It's the human condition that we would not be able to receive them in their purity if our experience was mingled with the idolatrous. Or like you're saying, from God's perspective, it's only holy and pure what's happening in the bathroom. But the human condition is such that we're not that refined right, our grounding in the physical essence and other things, which is what we're supposed to be. And it's not a mistake. It's not a sin.
Right, like it's a very healthy thing,
it's just
because
the human condition, right?
Right, but it's not that's not like a downside. It's an upside, because you're supposed to know that there are things that are not. It's important to know that there's a not holy place as opposed to a place that is holy. If you think that the bathroom is holy, then you're never going to believe that Jerusalem is holy. But if you're going to believe that there's a place that's not as holy in your house, you're going to believe that there's a place that's even holier that you're supposed to go to.
And that's what I mean by the human condition, and that very human condition is an aspect of our task of berur, of clarifying creation. God doesn't need creation clarified for God's sake. God can do whatever God wants. Humanity has a task of berur, which allows us to become what we need to be.
I just want to say this is a lot of fun, Rav Mike. It's great to be with you. I was just looking into the camera and thinking, this is so great that we're using this technology to talk about this ancient and hallowed principles, these amazing things. Just really cool. That's what I want to say. It's really cool. And I know that you have just another 5 minutes. I would have touched two topics, but I think we're only really have enough time for one, which is there's a lot of commandments, okay, including the commandments for that particular generation of putting the it's funny, I was talking about mezuzot, and that's really the root of it, which is the putting the blood on the doorposts, on the lintels. Yes. So there's commandments that are for generations about how to give the Paschal sacrifice yearly, and there's commandments about not eating leavened and eating matzah, and there's commandments for that generation. But there's also another set of commandments, which I think that we're engaging in right now, you and I, about Passover, and that is the issue that is in chapter 12, verse 26. V'haya ki yomru elechem b'nechem ma avodah zot lachem. Your children are going to ask you, what is this work that you're doing?
What are you doing?
Right? What is this service that you're offering? What is this thing that you're doing?
Why are you standing on the counters and scrubbing the cabinets?
Right. Like, what is this thing? And you are going to be, you have to answer them. Or in another way to say it, you have to teach them. V'amartem, you shall say, Zevach Pesach hu Hashem. It's an offering, a Paschal offering it is unto God. Asher pasach al batei bnei Israel, which he that skipped over, that or protected. There's another option to understand Passover as protection, but skipped over usually, jumped over the houses of the children of Israel, or protected the houses of the children of Israel. B'Mitzrayim, in Egypt, benakfo et Mitzrayim, when he struck down Egypt, vet batenu hitzil, but our houses he saved. V'ikod ha'am v'ishtachu, and the nation at that point bowed down and prostrated themselves. Is that? It's hard to understand. Is that part of the phrase what you tell your kids, or is it that's what happened when they got the message that they're going to have children, that they're going to be able to tell it to in the land of Israel and talk to them about what happened in Egypt? The
latter is how Rashi reads it,
right?
For sure.
Right. Or does it mean that and you told and then our nation bowed down to God and thanked him? Well, anyway, it's one of those verses you can read in both ways. But let's just talk about this thing, which is something that you do with your whole life, which is really education. Yes. These are verses that are they're like meta narrative verses. They're like, you're in this moment, you're doing all these things, you got all these commandments, but I'm telling you also now, turn on your memory switch, because I want you to be able to talk about this and teach it later on.
Yeah, it's beyond talking, like you pointed out. It's embedded in the sort of reenactment that we do, and beyond reenactment every Pesach, right? Everybody's familiar with this idea that comes from the Mishnah that everyone's obligated to see themselves as if they came out of Egypt, right? That there's kind of three levels here. There's the historical reality. There's this sort of educational, cultural imperative to remember, and recall that remembering is an active process, not a passive one. It involves teaching your children and calls, etc. But then there's even deeper aspect of I would call it existential identification, that you yourself must come out. That you cannot simply be a recipient of this story, and you can't even just pass on the story to someone else. This story must transform you, right? Otherwise, it lacks its power to transform the world.
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is the reason, as you're pointing out, that throughout the narrative here, the Torah pulls the lens out and says, by the way, remember this. By the way, this is you're gonna eat that lamb, etc. And because they ala morim, right, the al matzah morim, why are you eating it with matzah and moro? Because they embittered your lives. Right? Even as they're experiencing it, it's being pointed out to them that these are eternal principles which everyone must embody in their own life in each generation.
Awesome. And let's take a second here, or we have just like one more second. Let's just pray for the success of all the people that are watching this thing, and certainly for the state of Israel, the land of Israel, the people of Israel. And I want to pray for the world, and also at this juncture in American history, I want to pray for the continued success of the United States, to keep doing their mission, their thing, and to have more peace and love amongst the populace there, and to find more common ground, B'ezrat Hashem, and to also be thankful to God for the great things that He has given us. One of the things I'm grateful for is the time to spend with you, Rav Mike Feuer. So thank you so much for joining us, and we want to wish you a refuah shlema, and you're going now to get your vaccination. And may you not grow a tail and only be kept healthy from this coronavirus.
Amen. Thank you so much. Shabbat shalom.
God bless you, Rav Mike, and we let you go. All right, folks, you are listening to the Yishai Fleischer Show, and it's a lot of fun to have Rav Mike and talk about Torah. It's a lot of fun to also be with you, and there's a lot of sweet folks out there. For example, my good friend Shmuel Goldman, who says, "Hail in the Golan, but it ain't no plague." No, it is a blessing, and we also had hail today here in the Jerusalem region, in the Jerusalem mountains, in Gush Etzion, and we made sure to collect some of that hail, because that hail is the Torah many times compares the manna to frost and to snow, and so we collected it, poured a little bit of apple juice concentrate on it, and we're going to have it now as a dessert snack. But really remember also the manna. That's the manna. And what is remembering the manna? That just means remembering that everything is a gift from Hashem, that He gives us our health and our relationships, and our thoughts, and our opportunities, and our homes, and just to think that thought, and to be like, Hashem, you are blessing me. And I just want you to know that if hail is falling on the land of Israel, a blessed hail, not a hail of destruction, but a hail of blessings, and the Jewish kids in Israel are going to be really defeating Hitler by having hail ice cream snacks. That is a great blessing indeed. And also, I think this is just a funny remark by Andrea, who says, "I wish I could pray in the bathroom because I'm here for hours doing my hair and face." That's a great line, Andrea. God bless you, and may Hashem also give you opportunities to pray wherever you want, just not in the bathroom, but rather facing the land of Israel, with a picture of the land of Israel in your house. And I'm always recommending to people, make sure that you have a big picture of something that you love in the land of Israel in your house. And I say this to Jews and Gentiles. This is Yishai's additional commandments. Put up a picture of the land of Israel in your house. Something that you love. If it's Tzfat, if it's Tveria, if it's the Mediterranean, if it's Yerushalayim or Hebron, whatever it is for you, or Eilat, whatever it is, or the Golan Heights. Put up a picture of something like that in your house. It'll really give you a lot of juice and a lot of connectivity. And of course, imbibe products from the land of Israel. That's why one of the sponsors to our show is Blessed by Israel, Blessed BUY Israel. When you put on coupon code Yishai, you get 12% off, and it's an awesome. There's got awesome products from the land of Israel, including olive oil, which I really think that it would be great for you to have olive oil from the land of Israel. So that's blessedbyisrael.com. Also, check out two grooming products. One is from my good friends, Salves of Jerusalem, salvesofjerusalem.com. They make great creams that are made from all organic, natural stuff from the land of Israel. So you're going to be putting the land of Israel on your body, and you're going to really connect to that spiritual energy, and you're going to have a glow. You're going to have a facial glow. You're going to have a Mo glow, a Moses glow coming out of you. So that's salvesofjerusalem.com. And also, if you're like me, a beardman, okay, a man who sports a beard, then you need Aleph Male, okay? Aleph Male, which will give you, again, all natural, awesome smelling, great products. A lot of people have already bought products from Aleph Mail from the show, and they really like it. I just got my friend Ben said he bought it. His wife loves the smell. His beard looks great, which is awesome. We can't sell you the beard. That's something you have to do yourself. But we can sell you the beard product. So that's alephmail.com. I also put in coupon code Yishai, 10% off. Actually, it's Yishai 10. Put that coupon code in, bang. The other thing is Tchelet, Tekhelet. That's the biblical blue string, which is back after 2,000-year hiatus. You have a chance to do an incredible mitzvah. It is an amazing feeling. I wear them every day. My little kids wear them. My youngest son sleeps in his tzitzit. I also sleep in my tzitzit. Whatever, that's a topic for a different show. It's an awesome thing. So check that out. It makes a big difference. So that's Tekhelet. Also coupon code Yishai there will give you 5% off. So check that out. Hey, it's money, right? Who else? The Jewish community of Hebron. The Jewish community of Hebron always needs your support. We protect the tombs of the fathers and mothers. The Hebron Fund is a fabulous organization. I'm proud to be associated with it. HebronFund.org. Check them out as well. And of course, check out the other shows on our network, the landofisrael.com, including the Fellowship, the Land of Israel Network, thelandofisrael.com. And my network with all the shows and my latest Newsweek article. Check it out. It's on Newsweek right now. Or just go to my site, yishaifleisher.com. Thank you to my good friend Moshe, who manages and operates at Moshe and Yocheved, working to make it better every single day. If you feel like donating, no better time than today. You know why? Because why not, right? It makes all the difference when you support our show and you support our work. And of course, write us an email, yishai@thelandofisrael.com or yishaifleisher.com. Let me check out if there's any other comments there. There you go, my good friend Shmuel from the north of Israel, writing, "You got the Mo glow, Yeesh." That's right, that the Mo glow. That's right. It is definitely a blessing. And other people are saying to pray for the COVID virus folks. I do have some good friends who have gotten pretty sick recently, so I really want to pray for everybody's health and send them brachot. Brachot to the new administration, brachot to the outgoing administration for doing such great things. Brachot to the state of Israel, the land of Israel. Our election season, we'll be talking about that soon. And wherever you are, folks, we are sending you our blessings because this is the land of blessings. So shalom and thank you. And if you're listening to the podcast, there may be more stuff to come. But in the meantime, blessings and shalom, and enjoy winter and the hail here in the land of Israel.